Hello everyone, welcome back to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. My name is Joey, and I'm obsessed with video games. And today, we're going to do something I don't usually do. Now on this channel, I do reviews, full game playthroughs, that kind of thing. I very rarely will talk about game news, game politics, game difficulty, which just so happens to be the subject of today's discussion. And that is why I believe all video games should have difficulty options. So, a little bit of context. This morning I downloaded a new game, Slave 0X, a game I had been looking forward to. And there's already a video on the channel, which is my first impressions of it. I was loving it. Absolutely loving it. For the first half an hour to an hour, hour and a half. Then something happened that I have found occurring more and more often in certain video games. And that is, I hit the point where the game clearly starts and you realise that it's a very difficult game. Now, this could be on me. I pre-ordered, should I say, Slave 0X without properly looking into it. And having done my research since, I have realised that the game was advertised as a brutal hack and slash brawler type experience. So that's on me. And I found myself becoming incredibly frustrated with the game after the first hour or so, because it gets very difficult. And sadly, the game doesn't have difficulty options. Now, this isn't the only game that obviously does not have difficulty options, the most famous example being the games of From Software. So, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Elden Ring. And to give you some context, I have beaten every single FromSoft game, but the only one I have legitimately beaten is Bloodborne. And there was a couple of reasons for that. One, I played it in co-op, and that will always make a game easier. And two, I did really enjoy Bloodborne, and I probably did do a few bosses on my own. But would I have rather played Bloodborne solo with difficulty options? Yes, absolutely. Because for me, I get absolutely no enjoyment from a video game in overcoming challenge. It does absolutely nothing for me. On the contrary, I am what you would probably call a story-focused gamer. I don't play games to get stuck and to have a hard time and to try and overcome challenges. There are people who do, and that's terrific. There are people who load up the newest Resident Evil and instantly on their first playthrough will pick the hardest difficulty, and that's how they'll stream the game, and that's how they get their enjoyment from the game, and that's what people like to watch, and more power to them. More power to them. And that's probably why this channel doesn't do as well as it should, because I like to play on easy mode. And there's several reasons for that. One, it's a kind of power fancy thing. So if I'm playing, for example, something like Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, which is one of my favourite video games of all time, I like to be able to get through the game without getting frustrated and getting annoyed and wanting to throw the controller out the window. That, to me, is just not fun. That's not fun. When I play a video game, I want to enjoy the gameplay, absolutely, but I want to finish the game. When I start up a game, I want to finish it. I don't want to spend weeks and weeks and weeks honing, my technique and looking up boss strategies and dying and dying and dying and then finally overcoming it and then moving on to the next boss and repeating the process. That's not fun to me. So with something like Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, if you want to pick the hardest difficulty, which is Revengeance difficulty, then you can. And it's tough. And I have never finished the game on Revengeance. Could I finish the game on Revengeance? Maybe. But that's only because I played Metal Gear Rising probably close to 100 times at this point. And that's not much of an exaggeration. The game came out when? 2012, 2013? So I replay it a lot, at least a few times a year, because I love it. It's one of my favourite games of all time, like I said. But what that game gives me that something like Dark Souls or more recently, Slave Zero X doesn't, is difficulty options. So I have the option to either make the game difficult for myself or bulldoze my way through it. And that's the way I like to play video games. With something like Slave Zero X, you have to play it on the same difficulty as everyone else, because you don't have the option. Now, how you choose to go about it is up to you. You might choose to upgrade this, upgrade that. It's the same in something like Dark Souls or Elden Ring. You can go about how you play it very differently to other people, but you have to play it on the same difficulty. And of course, FromSoft games you can play in co-op. Most of them, I think. At certain points, mostly only for boss fights. But would I enjoy a FromSoft game if they gave me the option to play it on easy? Absolutely. Would I enjoy it more? Absolutely. And that might just be me. But my enjoyment comes from finishing the game. And of course, I said when I first brought up FromSoft, by the way, this video is not scripted if that's not already obvious. So if I ramble, I apologise. I'll try and keep it to a minimum. I said that the only FromSoft game I have... That's actually not true. I've completed 2 FromSoft games legitimately. One was Bloodborne, which we've already discussed, and the other one was the Demon's Souls remake. And I did play some of that in co-op. But I did do the majority of the bosses in the Demon's Souls remake on my own. But again, would I have enjoyed the game more if I was able to get through it first time? Absolutely. Without playing in co-op? Absolutely. Now, how did I finish Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and Elden Ring? Not legitimately, you might be asking. I used cheats. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I used cheats. There's a cheat system for the PlayStation 4 that lets you play certain games with cheats. And luckily, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, and Elden Ring, you can do that. So that's how I was able to finish those games. I've never said that I finished them legitimately, that I won some kind of accolade for finishing them. I used cheats. Because without difficulty options, that was my only way I felt of getting through those games. Could I have persevered for weeks on end? And maybe, yes. I've been gaming for a very long time. 35 years at this point. So, yeah, maybe. But I don't want to do that. That's the thing. That's not fun. Now, I finished other Souls-likes, legitimately, like Code Vein. But Code Vein, to me, has the right balance between difficult and not so difficult. There's a phrase that's thrown around all the bloody time, which is, it's tough but fair. And that's an interesting phrase. Is it fair to make me play in the difficulty you choose for me? Is that fair? In my opinion, no. Fair would be giving me the option to either make the game easier for myself or make it harder. That to me would be fair. So I don't like the phrase, it's tough but fair. Because that's not going to help me. Well, for a start, it's not going to help me enjoy the game. And secondly, it's not going to help me do what I want to do in the game, which is finish it. Finish the story, because I'm a story-focused gamer. So games like Marvel Spider-Man, for example, absolutely adore. Marvel Spider-Man 2 was my game of the year last year. Would it have been my game of the year last year if you had to play on the hardest difficulty? No, probably not. Because I would have got annoyed, and I would have got frustrated, and I might have put the game down. I don't know how difficult the hardest difficulty in Marvel Spider-Man 2 is, just for... I've not tried it, and I don't want to try it, that's the thing. The only reason I would do that is if I was deciding, right, I'm gonna set myself a personal challenge. But I've already finished the game many times, so anything I do after that is a bonus in my book. So something like Slave Zero X, if they had given... Now, they may add, bearing in mind, this is the early access version. This is if you pre-ordered the game, you got to play it 3 days early. There may be difficulty options when this game officially launches. And I will change my opinion, if there is. Like I said, there's a review already on the channel. If you want to hear... That's not me. It's OCG, but if you want to hear a lot of swearing and a lot of shouting, then go watch that. It's more a rant than a review, but I think it gets the point across. And the point I'm trying to make with this video is, I believe video games should have difficulty options. Because there's many times I've booted up a game, wanting to love it, and then turning it off because I decide it's too difficult. And I can't be bothered dying, and dying, and dying, and dying, and trying again, and trying again, and trying again. There are difficult games I have finished. For example, The Last Faith, Blasphemous, Blasphemous 2. But again, something about those games kept me coming back and kept me trying again. But would I have rather played them with difficulty options? Yes. And of course, in an RPG, Blasphemous doesn't have a leveling system, but The Last Faith does. With The Last Faith, if I got stuck on a boss, I would just go away and level up. Now, can you do that in Slave 0X? You can, kind of. It's not really leveling though, and you would have to replay the same monotonous crap stage over and over and over and over. You basically have to get currency, and then you can get a health upgrade, or you can. But it's not a level upgrade. Yes, you could do that. I mean, that's the whole point in FromSoft games. But FromSoft games have their own, what I term as their own brand of difficulty, or torture, as I call it. And some people love that. Some people love difficult games, and they love streaming on the hardest difficulty. And I know people like watching, you know, like Resident Evil 7 on Ethan Must Die, or Devil May Cry on Dante Must Die. Devil May Cry is another of my favourite series. Again, I play on easy, because that's how I enjoy it. Because I feel like a powerhouse. And essentially I can bulldoze my way through it, and it does add to my enjoyment, and it will mean I like the game. Now, whether you agree with that or not is entirely up to you. But to me, that's the way I think it should be with every video game. So Slave 0X, I believe, should have difficulty options. Because sadly, as much as I looked forward to it, and as much as I enjoyed the first hour and a half, I'm probably not going to finish it now. Because I can't be bothered with what I deem to be unfair difficulty spikes. And okay, maybe I just suck at it, fair enough. But I played enough video games to know when a game is supposed to be difficult and when I suck. And having looked into this game, Slave 0X, it's obviously supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be brutal. It's supposed to be hard. It's the same with FromSoft games. They're supposed to be difficult. I just don't think that's fair. So when people, again, going back to that phrase, it's tough but fair? No. Fair would be, it's tough, but you can make it easier if you need to. And with games like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, I did that the worst way you could probably do it, which is I used cheats. And yes, eventually cheats may come out for Slave 0X, the PS4 version. You can't cheat on PS5 yet. And I may then finish the game. But my original experience with it has already, tainted my experience with the game. Which is, I think it's too difficult. I think it's far too difficult. And I would like to make it easier and finish it. Because this was a game I really looked forward to, and I'm incredibly disappointed that for the first hour and a half I was really enjoying it, and then boom! Nope. We're going to throw 100 enemies at you and have flying things above you bombing you at the same time. I'm not kidding. I show a clip of it in my review for the... Well, not my review. OCG's review for the game. There's a clip of it. And that to me is just not fun. And yeah, you can push through it and fluke your way through it, which is what can happen. But, that's not any better. Randomly button mashing and somehow everything dies is not... And I think it comes down to because it's like a beat 'em up. But yes, so we've not discussed beat 'em ups yet. So in beat 'em ups, I am useless with combos and all that crap. I don't have the patience for it. So I play Mortal Kombat, etc., on easy. which is probably why I didn't like any of the 90s beat 'em ups, because you didn't really have, they were notoriously difficult. Things like Street Fighter 2 and stuff like that, the original Mortal Kombat 2 and all that. Difficult games. And I didn't enjoy them because of that. So this video isn't going to change anything. I just wanted to make a video where I talk about something, an issue, without, slagging off another YouTuber or talking about gaming news, which I often find really boring unless it's something, people have been talking about this Xbox going non-exclusive, maybe PlayStation getting some of their games and all that. I don't need to discuss that in the video. Enough people do that. But this is an issue I have raised more than once, which is, difficulty options in games and how I wish certain games, especially games I've looked forward to, games I've been enjoying, how I wish, like Metal Gear Rising, like the Devil May Cry games, like, the Tomb Raider reboot, Resident Evil games, etc. Give me the option. If I want to play it on easy, let me. If you want to call me a baby for doing that, then fine. But at least I enjoy the game. And that's all I really wanted to say about it. So if you've enjoyed this, give me a thumbs up. If you want to hear me talk about other things in the future, other gaming topics or whatever, then let me know. If you let me know and enough people do it, then I'll definitely do it. But that's going to be it for me today. So always stay obsessed with gaming, as I always say. And I'll catch you next time, chaps.
Are you still here? Oh, you must have really enjoyed this video then. In that case, you had better subscribe to the channel and check out our other content. Otherwise, you're a booby pants, and no one wants to be a booby pants.